All right. We are back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. We are in the Bourbon Cave, the whiskey bar. I don't know what you want to call it over here, but we are just right around the corner from the actual cave itself. And we've been talking about doing a show over here for quite a while, and we're talking about whiskey, in particular in music. First and foremost, bourbon, obviously really, really big. And for those of you who don't know, what is bourbon? What is the legal definition of bourbon? Has to be a distilled spirit made of at least 51% corn. The rest can be rye, barley, wheat, whatever it is. Has to be aged in new oak charred barrels, American white oak, one-time use only. It can only be distilled at 160 proof, no more. Has to be put in that barrel at no more than 125 proof, and once it goes in that bottle, it has to be at least 80 proof. If you're going to age that less than 4 years, you got to write it on the bottle. There is no minimum, you just have to state it. 5 years is kind of the general accepted time that tends to be out there, but it's getting harder and harder to find those 10 and 15 year bourbons because nobody saw this coming and nobody's just sitting on whiskey for that long. There was a time where you could get really, really excellent bourbon for super cheap, bottom shelf material because nobody wanted it. Late 70s, early 80s, they were making no money off of it. There was really, really good whiskey out there for super cheap, but they basically went through such a glut of demand that eventually some of them had to close their distilleries, sell off what they had for racing fuel, or give it to Seagrams for whatever they were using it for, sherry or whatever. And so there was this time where the producers were not aging whiskey, and certainly not enough to predict what's been happening now. If you're wondering what whiskey is, if you see a bottle of just whiskey, that's a lot of the same rules. It's just that you don't have to do 51% corn. It could be made of barley, corn, rye, wheat, whatever it is. And it's usually aged. Those are usually aged in sherry casks. Scotch, of course, comes from Scotland and has to be made in Scotland. The barrels are often from the United States, and often that's those barrels that were used to make bourbon in because they were one-time use only. How do they get that smoky flavor in there? Because that peat is usually heated up over a peat fire. Sorry, that barley is heated up on a peat fire to get that kind of distinct taste to it. Rye, of course, the same rules, similar rules, has to be at least 51% rye. American farmers got rid of all their rye or a lot of their rye at a certain point, and that's why Canada has rye and had rye and is known for Canadian spirit, because once it came around and popular, Canada had all the rye. A Tennessee whiskey is usually something that's been charcoal filtered. That would be like your Jack Daniels. Straight bourbon, if it says straight bourbon, that has to be aged a minimum of 2 years. All right, now that we've done that lesson, what are we talking about in music? All right, tons of songs about whiskey or bourbon. If you want to have it just be a title with a drink or about drinking, that's totally fine. I know there's going to be a lot of country songs in here. I do not listen to country. I'm not going to badmouth country here. I won't do that right now, but it's not my thing. That's all right, but I know a ton of you will know some songs about whiskey in that genre of music. So now is your chance, but plenty in rock and roll. I made a list, and I came through a list of like 15 or 20 songs. But that's no fun if I just post them all. So that's your job. I want you to post the whiskey songs, drinking songs, bourbon songs. I'm going to do 3, I think. So the ones that come to mind for me, the earliest ones I can think of that were in my life. Alabama song, Whiskey Bar from the Doors. That one just been around since high school for me, and that's an awesome song. That would be top of my list as far as that's concerned. Snortin' Whiskey by Pat Travers Band. I don't know why, but for some reason, that's one out there that I remember from a very early age. And also, One Bourbon, One Scotch, One Beer, as done by, well, the original version that you would hear is John Lee Hooker. Yes, the bluesman John Lee Hooker. You have to listen to his version. That's a good make or remake. But of course, George Thorogood made it so popular. So those are my 3. I know a bunch more, so that's your job today on this Monday. Give me your whiskey drinking songs, whatever they are. Post them below. Can't wait to hear. We're at almost 5 minutes or so, so we're going to keep it going, and we're going to head on our way. So enjoy your day, and as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.